I think a dialogue is very useful, and I'm very interested to sort of learn about what people are doing, and also to share some views and concerns from the public interest NGO sector. Rather than sort of try to address each of the points Mr. Hambrecht mentioned and try to do a rebuttal, I would just like to sort of open with some points, some high points that public interest NGO people have sort of expressed to me over a period of time within the ICCM process and even outside of that. The first one is provision of information. I know this is one that the industry is very well aware of and is conducting efforts to address. The high production volume challenge deals with a certain subset of those chemicals, but the reality is that most of the chemicals have really very poor set of information associated with them. And the reason that's important is that when you go to speak of substitution of chemicals that pose harm, you would like to know that you're substituting your substance for something that is safer and not more harmful. And if you don't have the information, it's very hard to make that decision. The second point I'd like to make deals with the responsible care program. This one is more of a difficult topic, but civil society is very aware that the responsible care program was developed in response to the Bhopal disaster. And so when we're here in a ICCM process thinking of achieving a 2020 goal, it's very natural for people to ask, and what about Bhopal? Because you've named your one of your main programs for achieving the 2020 goal that has to do with something directly linked to a disaster. And the truth is that it's a toxic mess. There are people there who have birth defects, it's not cleaned up, it's really a total mess. And so the industry has kind of linked itself to something that illustrates its inability or its indifference to suffering and a toxic waste site. And I think that's an important point to remember. The third point is that the goal that I've read, I'm very happy to hear the endorsement of the ICCM goal, but the goal that I've read in the industry's own literature is confidence, is sort of that the public will have confidence that chemicals are used safely throughout their life cycle. But that's not the ICCM goal. The ICCM goal is that chemicals are used and produced safely. And what the goal that I've read in the literature suggests is if the chemical is actually dangerous, but the public has confidence that it's okay, then we've achieved the goal. And I don't think that's good for the industry, and I don't think it's not consistent with the ICCM process. The fourth thing I'd like to bring up is what I call the denial of harm. Now, this is also a difficult conversation topic, but I think it's useful just to lay it down on the table so that people understand it. This is sort of a paraphrase of a professor of public health in the US. He did it with regards to asbestos, but it applies to chemicals as well. So it goes like this. There's some harm from some chemical substance, and the response of the industry would be, well, my substance doesn't cause cancer. Okay, it does cause cancer, but not the kind of cancer you got. Okay, it does cause the kind that you got, but not at the dose at which you were exposed. Okay, it does cause cancer at the dose at which you were exposed, but the statute of limitations has run out. You can just travel down the path, and it's that sort of denial of harm that I think also puts the industry in a defensive posture instead of sort of an aggressive, proactive posture. Looking ahead to the future, I think there are a couple of important things with regards to the ICCM process. Mr. Steiner brought up the point that South Africa mentioned earlier in the day, and this deals with internalization of costs. This is another big one for the chemical industry, and the way that I would describe it is that the decision to put certain chemicals in products is a private sector decision, but governments have the responsibility for the health and safety of their residents. And so that becomes a form of a subsidy to the industry if the chemical is toxic and they have to deal with it. In addition, the harms that chemicals cause are not as a cost that's not borne by the industry. So ultimately, the internalization of cost should be seen as a goal for the industry, because anything other than that is actually a market distortion. In addition, I'd say for the future, we're looking for an industry, as mentioned previously, that produces healthy, safe substances, where workers are treated with dignity and paid fairly. And I think that the industry is an extremely important part of the solution and a very important partner in SciChem. Those are my opening remarks, and I'd like to continue the dialogue and look forward to the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Yeah, I was taking notes and he wanted equity, and so you can have some applause right now. That's it for tonight. Now, I'm sure with the group of people that's up here, some of the challenges that Joe mentioned are going to be taken up by other people, and there'll be plenty of time to do that, and I think it's important to do that. But I also think we need to get some more data on the table, get some more points of view out. And so I would turn now to Christian Joquin, and perhaps we can do a little geographic walk around the globe, starting with you. And I think it'd be interesting for you to give us some perspective on the global product strategy and how it relates to REACH and SciChem, and what you think is a kind of a European point of view on management of the chemical industry. So it's your turn.
Thank you. Well, when we speak about REACH, I find there is something which is extremely important. It's a journey we started a number of years ago. It started with the White Book on chemistry. It was in 2001. And actually, it took 6 to 7 years to come to a system which is for me today an equilibrium. And I would say from this period of 6 years discussion, maybe I would like to draw at least 3 remarks. First of all, coming out of REACH, we will certainly have a safer world. Second point, during the 6 years that we discussed together, I have the feeling that the quality of the dialogue we've established with the stakeholders has improved.